This is CBC Here and Now.
The Carbonear Town Council voted last month to send this derelict piece of metal to the scrapyard. But when word got out, opposition rolled in faster than a speeding locomotive.
Personally, I'd just like to see 803 saved. I'd like to see her preserved for future generations to love and enjoy.
So now there may be new hope for engine 803. That story coming down the track.
The Rover Search and Rescue showed off their newest piece of life-saving equipment here today.
Since we had it, we did one operation already. A guy in Ballyne took a wrong turn. We got him out in less than 2 hours.
I'm Jeremy Eaton, and I'll tell you all about it coming up.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We'll get to those stories shortly, but first we begin tonight with the ongoing staffing crunch at the Janeway Hospital in St. John's and the rise in respiratory infections in children. Eastern Health is now setting aside some walk-in appointments for children with mild respiratory illness. Those children can go to the clinic at Mundy Pond Road in St. John's. The health authority says children with more serious conditions should still go to the Janeway. The clinic opens at 8:30 a.m. and parents and guardians are being asked not to arrive before that time. Moving now to Conception Bay South, a man is in custody after what police are calling an incident involving a firearm earlier today. According to the RNC, it happened before noon on Pettins Road in the Upper Gullies area. Police were asking residents and the public to avoid the area into the afternoon. That's because the investigation is ongoing and officers remained on the scene. The RNC did not provide any details on the incident or say if the gun was fired. Well, a coalition has been formed to tackle the apparent rise in crime happening in downtown St. John's. Here and Now has spoken with business owners and musicians who say the situation feels dire. Harassment and muggings after performances, holdups involving knives, bear spray, and other weapons. The Downtown Safety Coalition says an unprecedented number of organizations, including the RNC, are coming together. Their message to the public: report anything out of the ordinary.
Reporting incidents of safety as they occur is our responsibility. Because the RNC, like many organizations, are data driven, the importance of making sure that we do not exercise apathy when we see things happening around the downtown that are unsafe, but instead we lean in to log those incidents and what we see, whether it's online or calling the RNC information line.
Now, Cody says the coalition was formed in response to the uptick of incidents in downtown St. John's in recent months. And we're not done with this conversation. You'll hear about an upcoming meeting as well as some of the plans underway to improve safety. That's ahead in about 25 minutes. Well, it is a beast of a machine. Railway engine 803 sits by the ocean in Carbonear as a reminder of the province's railway history. But time has not been kind to the relic. Between the town and railway buffs, the question is, can it be saved? Here Now's Terry Roberts reports.
There's no other way to put it. CN Locomotive 803 is a mess. Years of neglect, constant ocean spray, possible lead paint, toxic, a noticeable list as the rails sink into the dirt, and metal shards that pose a safety hazard for those daring enough to climb on board.
From that down, it looks pretty good, right?
Okay. The price tag to restore 803, more than $100,000, says the mayor. Too much for this small town. So the council passed a motion last month to send this piece of history to the scrapyard.
Mostly it's safety. Price tag certainly is something that is a factor. 6 figures. It'd be a hard sale for the residents of the town of Carbonear.
The Newfoundland Railway is loved by millions of people the world over.
This Carbonear native has trains in his veins, so he took action, starting an online petition to save the locomotive. Nearly 1,300 signatures and counting.
I'd just like to see 803 saved. I'd like to see her preserved for future generations to love and enjoy.
Built in the 50s, this diesel locomotive is the last of its kind in the province. Has been on static display in Carbonear since 1989. Served branch lines to Carbonear, Argentia, Bonavista, an unmistakable reminder of the town's link to the old railway. A history that's told in this nearby museum, a former train station.
There's a hope for it.
Absolutely.
There is.
The mayor says support to save the locomotive has been overwhelming, and that's forced town leaders to reconsider.
I think if funding was available, we would go back and look at the motion.
A big fix will take big money. 803 needs more than a lick of paint.
Either to remove the lead, you either have to tarp it in and do it, or take the structure to a building and remove it. So that's where the cost of doing that.
The mayor says the town will chip in, possibly $20,000.
I don't want it to go. No, it's a piece of our history.
And this railway buff is all aboard to lend a hand.
It's a sin to see her come to this, that she'd be scrapped.
This town will mark 75 years of incorporation next year. Now there's hope this piece of Newfoundland railroad history can be restored in time for those celebrations. Terry Roberts, CBC News, Carbonear.
Well, another plane load of Ukrainians is expected to arrive this evening. The first passengers should clear Canadian customs in the next hour or so. This is the fourth government plane carrying Ukrainians to touch down in Newfoundland and Labrador. Tonight's charter will fly directly from Warsaw, Poland to St. John's Airport. More than 1,000 Ukrainians have already found shelter in the province since Russia invaded that country. The most recent flight arrived in October and brought 177 passengers.
Well, the weather out there today fairly quiet. We do have a lot of RDF in the forecast though, and saw a little bit of that today for at least eastern areas of the island. Thanks to this ridge of high pressure offshore, bringing in that onshore flow. We do have an area of low pressure moving in though. That's going to bring some snow to parts of Lab West as we head through the overnight tonight. But take a look at these temperatures today. Well above where you should be sitting this time of year up across Labrador, and then above zero for in most cases across the island as well. And that means that the temperatures were anywhere from 8 to 15 degrees warmer today than they were yesterday across Labrador. But as we head through the next couple of days, we're going to continue to hang on to these mild temperatures. But watch what's happened as we get into Thursday night into Friday. We'll start to get into some more of that more seasonable air. For those of you in Lab West, that will work its way across Labrador as we get into the weekend, bringing back those minus 20 temperatures. I'll get into the full forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, all across the province tonight and across Canada, flags are at half-mast. 33 years ago today, 14 women were murdered at École Polytechnique. Nearly a dozen more were injured. And while a vigil to remember those women is happening at Memorial University at this hour, advocates who are fighting gender-based violence say decades after the tragedy, more needs to be done. Heather Gillis reports.
One by one, these candles will be lit tonight to remember the 14 women murdered at École Polytechnique on this day in 1989. Every year, Memorial University holds a vigil to commemorate the women who were killed solely because they were women. Maxine Paul is the university's sexual harassment advisor. She helped organize the vigil. 33 years later, Paul says gender-based violence is still a big issue.
There are so many things that contribute to gender-based violence. Those small offensive comments that people make, ways that people stereotype women and people who are non-binary.
It's a very emotional day, of course. It's also a reminder that a lot more needs to be done.
Malin Enstrom is the Associate Executive Director of the Iris Kirby House. The shelter for women and children experiencing domestic violence has seen a huge surge in demand this year. So much so, at times they've turned away women in need of shelter, safety, and support. She agrees society has a long way to go to stop violence.
Violence is a learned behavior, so it's definitely something that can be unlearned and also not learned at all.
She says eradicating it starts with kids, learning about healthy relationships in schools, with men standing up to support women when they recognize unhealthy behavior, and more programs for individuals who are abusive to stop the pattern.
Statistics Canada says family violence reported to police over the last 5 years is on the rise, and 2/3 of victims are women and girls. When it comes to intimate partner violence, that's on the increase too, with 80% of victims being female. But Paul says the total picture of violence against women and girls is hard to capture.
A lot of gender-based violence is not reported. So even when we get increased rates of reporting, we don't know if that is actually increased offenses or if it's just increased.
She says for the first time this year, all students at the university had to take an online course to learn about sexual violence and consent. Meanwhile, Paul is asking people to think individually about concrete steps they can take to stop gender-based violence. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Honestly, I was really surprised today to see so many faces with the heavy flu season we're having, but it was so nice to have so many people be in the same room together, especially to honor the lives that have been taken, and it's nice to get together again.
Dozens attended a ceremony at the College of the North Atlantic in Labrador West this morning. Candles were lit in honor of the 14 women murdered at École Polytechnique. Organizers say it's important to keep pushing the conversation about gender-based violence and for ceremonies like this one to include people of all ages. Newfoundland and Labrador Search and Rescue has a new life-saving tool to help volunteers rescue those stuck in the woods. The Rover Search and Rescue had hoped to show off its new helicopter high-lying rescue system, but due to fog, the chopper wasn't able to take to the air. Instead, the Volunteer Search and Rescue grounds crew gave a demonstration at their headquarters in Paradise.
Today is unveiling is the human cargo, external cargo system that we have, which is a system now that we can actually bring people out of the woods by a helicopter, and we don't have the land to be able to get them. As you know, anywhere on this trails around here, wooded areas, there's not many places to land. So if we go to a wooded area now, we land on a bog, set our system up, we hook onto the person and come on with them. If we seen you on the ground, we would fly over you, do 2 circles. The pilot would flash his headlight at you, to let you know that we see you. Then we'd find the nearest spot to you to land. Once we landed, we just haul the system out, hook it up, takes about 10 minutes, chopper's back in there, come right in over the top of you with 2 people, and we actually lower 2 people straight down to you, and once they're down, they'll hook you on. The chopper will fly off again for a little while because of the downwash. We'll hook everybody up, put them in a stretcher or in the harness. Chopper will come back and we'll just clip, and once we're in, straight up and out to wherever we're going.
And not necessarily injured. But
the technology itself been on the go for about 3-4 years. We only got it probably 6 months ago. We only did our training a month ago, and now we're starting to get the other teams involved. We will have 7 teams, as I said, and different helicopters set up with it. It'll be 4 different helicopters so that we can cover the province geographically. And since we had it, we did 1 operation already. A guy in Ballyne just took a wrong turn, and we got him out in less than 2 hours. We have the team in Clarnville trained also. They're doing their final training on this Saturday coming. Then we'll move most likely it'll be the spring by the time we get the gear ordered. We'll go to Grand Falls, we'll go to Deer Lake, Bombay area, then we'll hit Happy Valley, Goose Bay and Maccovic. So that way we have the whole province covered.
Well, it's Taco Tuesday at Holy Heart of Mary High School in St. John's. The school is bringing fresh local food to students with the help of a $10,000 grant from Farm to Cafeteria Canada. It comes at a time when food is getting more expensive. Here now's Katie Breen swung by.
These tacos are the best. Will always be the best no matter what. Nothing comes close to it.
Today is the Farm to Cafeteria Canada launch for Holy Heart. So we were award recipients of a $10,000 grant from Farm to Cafeteria Canada. And so they aim to get more local, fresh, healthy food into schools. We were able to buy equipment with it. So we have a salad bar en route. And then we're also planning to grow some hydroponics so that we can have our own lettuce. This is our launch day, so our very first food event where students can come and access local food in school.
We didn't have reliable cafeteria service and the food was not really high quality. So we had an idea of a launch of our own foods we could make, and Farm to Table came to life, Farm to School. So we really just got involved with that, thought about it, got fundraising at the start of the year, and just kind of launched the idea.
There's a lot of food insecurity issues within our school and within the greater community, but we see it a lot here at Holy Heart. So we wanted to make sure that we had food for students, however that looks, and the fact that we could bring in local food and healthy food was just a bonus.
What have you learned about food insecurity?
Well, that a lot of people can't get certain foods or they tend to waste it. And it's a big thing, and I'm actually really insecure about it now. I make sure my family doesn't waste foods whenever we make something at home. So.
Why do you do that?
Because some people can't get things that my family can, and I feel like it's such a big thing if like someone wastes something that someone else can't get.
I'm really learning how expensive food is getting. We did a few research assignments on how food gets to us, how much is thrown away, food waste, all that kind of stuff. And it's really just opening my eyes to how really bad food waste is, and how if we're not careful of it, it can really be a bad thing for our province.
If they really do need a lunch and they come in, they get one, that may boost their day and make their academical performance very increased. So they can have a good day, good lunch, full stomach. The brain has brain food, let's say.
For future events, we will probably need a lot more food. Seems like tacos are going over really well, so we'll probably do that again. But we definitely probably need to prepare for more than 200 in the future.
This season, we want to be together, and magically, we are.
That magic, that energy, what we're doing is actually making a difference.
You have the right to eat. You have the right to food.
We feel a real responsibility. We've been in this community for a long, long time.
This season, whatever kind of season you make it, make the season kind.
There only when fishermen want them to be there.
And there is almost no chance for whales to become entangled or injured because of this stuff.
Fishermen use a lot of rope. It's one of the tools of the trade, but now there's a move to cut down on the amount that ends up in the ocean to protect whales and other marine life. That story is next.
Well, the next 5 days look like RDF for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland, other parts of the province as well, but there is some snow in the forecast. I'll get into the details coming up.
Time for a look at the weather, and it was a bit of a mild, misty day in St. John's in our neck of the woods. I guess we're gonna have to settle in for some of that RDF.
Yeah, it's gonna be kind of hard to get into the Christmas spirit. You know, putting up I know some people want to put up lights when it's snowing, but you're gonna have to stick with drizzle, I guess, at this point over the next couple of days. Yeah, so it's been fairly mild already, but it was pretty chilly last night through parts of the province. Let's take a look at where you sat overnight. So the coldest temperatures were through central, especially in those low-lying areas, because we did see some clear skies overnight last night. And that'll be the end of it, essentially, but fairly mild up across Labrador as well. This morning, -5 in Lab City. Your overnight lows around this time of year should be sitting around the -20s. It does look like we'll see that in the next couple of days, but or should I say towards the weekend, but over the next couple of days, your temperatures are going to stay fairly mild. -1 right now in Lab City. Those temperatures right across the board, even a degree above in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. Temperatures a little cooler as you head towards the west coast, northern peninsula, central, along the south coast, still looking at those temperatures above 0 by a degree or 2, and then the same as we head through eastern Newfoundland as well. Bonavista, St. John's, Cape Race, all sitting between 1 and 2 degrees today. So that's showing up where we're seeing that ridge of high pressure to the north right now. It's bringing that onshore flow. Temperatures definitely moderating. But as we see this next system move through, this trough in behind it, that is going to bring some snow for a good chunk of the western portion of Labrador, and then eventually coastal areas will see that. North coastal areas will see that as well. Just taking a look at satellite radar right now, not a whole lot happening. Not that you can see anyway, lots of fog happening for the eastern half of the island. Some cloud cover moving in as well for the west. But if we take a look at that visibility, so down to 0.6 kilometers at the airport right now, otherwise unlimited visibility, and then even a little bit lower for Wabush as well, 3.2 kilometers at the moment. So as we head through the night tonight, we're looking at a whole lot more of RDF in the forecast, about 2 degrees overnight tonight in St. John's. Temperatures through central, west coast, and the northern peninsula will be below 0. So we're still in this onshore flow, which we will be. You're going to hear me talk about this now for the next at least week or so, maybe more than that. But when we start to see this pattern along with these cooler temperatures, this is the perfect recipe for freezing drizzle. So if you through areas through central, west coast, northern peninsula, keep that in mind tonight. So surfaces may get a little bit slippery if we do see that freezing drizzle develop. Any more than some patchy freezing drizzle. But up across Labrador, that snow will move in. Lab City -2 tonight, -1 in Nain. So here's a look at that system there. It will get fairly heavy at times tonight. Other than that, really not a whole lot happening. You likely see, or we may see, some freezing drizzle as well develop by the time we get into tomorrow morning for along the coast of Labrador at least, but likely just some cloudy periods. Again, that snow will continue right through Wednesday and even into Thursday for Lab West. Otherwise, drizzle really the story as we get into Thursday morning across the island. Now, snowfall amounts pretty significant as we get into Friday, even into Saturday, early Saturday morning. We're talking about the potential 15 to 20 centimeters of snow for Lab West, northern portions of Labrador, but that'll end pretty much by Happy Valley, Goose Bay. You'll pick up a few centimeters by the time we get to late this week, but overall, that's where most of the snow will fall over the next couple of days, and that's because of this pattern. This pattern typically brings the RDF, much less snow to parts of the west coast. So if you're hoping for some more, you're going to have to wait a little longer. Temperatures tomorrow will hover around 3 degrees for the most part, 3 to 5 degrees across the island, the Avalon rather. As you head towards central, between 2 and 3 degrees. Again, you're looking at some periods of drizzle through the day, likely cloudy, but also some patchy drizzle. West coast may see a few peaks of sun, maybe, but overall it will be a gray day. 2 degrees for Corner Brook and 0 for St. Anthony. Again, this may fall as patchy freezing drizzle through the day. Cartwright, you'll hover around -1 with a few sunny breaks in the mix for you as well. And then that snow, like I said, for Lab City tomorrow. Winds a bit breezy, 20 to 40 kilometers per hour out of the south, so you might see some drifting snow at times and some of that heavier snow. But overall temperatures well above where you should be sitting this time of year. And again, trend will continue for a couple more days. A dip coming by the weekend. Get into the full details coming up.
The lobster fishery in this province is still months away, but it opened yesterday in Nova Scotia for the largest lobster fishing area. Hundreds of boats sailed out of port and dropped thousands of lobster traps into the water. But there's talk of a shift in the industry toward a new technology that aims to reduce the amount of rope in the water. Brett Ruskin reports.
If there's one thing this industry relies on, it's rope. But that vertical rope from the surface to the sea floor can be deadly for whales.
They get them caught through their mouths as they swim through the ocean. They get them caught around their fins and tails.
Sean Brilliant says one solution is to eliminate that vertical line.
So this is the gear library.
Right? At this gear library, fish harvesters have free access to ropeless or rope-on-demand solutions.
We have some new ones like Devotion, and these stainless steel cages here are the Assured system.
Assured Innovations is nearby in Bedford, Nova Scotia, one of many companies working to cut down the time those vertical lines are in the water.
They're there only when fishermen want them to be there.
And there is almost no chance for whales to become entangled or injured because of this stuff. So it's a great opportunity.
But there's a problem. Some fishing crews don't like this type of gear. Back in 2018, two lobster fishing associations tested gear made by an American company. They found the acoustic system made it difficult to retrieve the buoy line, leading to long days and lost gear. And without surface buoys, there's currently no system to know if one boat is dropping traps over another.
You're just going to have a bunch of snarled up gear, lost gear. It would be a nightmare.
Plus, take a look at this map. These are zones that were closed to fishing after whales were spotted. But the most lucrative lobster fishing areas are down here, where crews argue there isn't a problem. Canada will soon announce guidelines for which gear should be used to prevent entanglements, and American officials are also watching closely. By this time next year, Canada will have to match U.S. marine protection measures, or else Canadian seafood won't be allowed in. So, whether it's access to the U.S. market, compliance with Canadian laws, or goodwill towards whales, this not yet perfected gear could soon be more common.
Brett Ruskin, CBC News, Yarmouth, Nova Scotia.
So are we there yet? No. Is it urgent? Yes. Have we been doing and working as hard as we can as a working group to better pave the way for improved safety in the downtown? Absolutely.
The George Street Association responds to calls for more safety measures in downtown St. John's. We've been hearing from some musicians and bar owners who are concerned about downtown safety. There have been reports about muggings on the street. We've heard about armed robberies in bars and just a general sense of nervousness among some of the people who make a living in the downtown area. And there have been calls for the RNC and the George Street Association to take action on the issue of downtown safety. And joining me now is Donnie Cody of the George Street Association. So can you talk about the kinds of stories that you've been hearing?
Well, I mean, it's a very complex issue. The George Street Association, as one of the main operating associations in the downtown, takes the safety of all patrons and staff, which include musicians, so seriously. Since early this summer, because of the ramp-in incidents around safety, George Street Association with Downtown St. John's, the City of St. John's, Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador, Destination St. John's, Music NL, the RNC formed a working group called the Downtown Safety Coalition. And the reason that was formed is because of how seriously all of these organizations that care so much about safety in the downtown came together. A series of in-person and virtual meetings occurred, and ultimately what came out of those meetings was a united front amongst all of the associations that serve the various members that comprise downtown, and an information session planned for early January that will be led by the RNC that contain a bunch of information that folks need to know about how to prioritize safety from the RNC's perspective.
You hear about committees and coalitions getting together and having meetings and talking, but I know the people that I talk to, they want to know what kind of action will be taken, like something tangible, something like maybe improving the lighting on George Street as an option. Is there anything that you've been talking about that's kind of tangible that can be done to improve safety?
Well, I appreciate that. And I will say that there is a lighting project that has been ongoing since last year in partnership with the City of St. John's and Downtown St. John's, which has seen more lighting happening. We see the lights strung up and down the street all the summer past and the summer before, which has had a great impact on visibility in the later hours. And we are experiencing other lighting projects ongoing to help with that tangible outcome. But truly, when it comes to what the most strategic and important first step in this, the working group's information session, it is all about education and awareness, because if folks don't know the basis by which we can see evolutions of presence and the betterment of safety in the downtown, then we've missed a major opportunity. So step one is the information session, where folks can join virtually or in person to this session, and we've already communicated with all the association heads who have disseminated that information onto their members, and of course this media release brought us together today. This is step one. Having the information session is step two. Getting feedback from participants is step three. And then other ideas that come forward will help us better tackle the complex matter of safety.
And you mentioned the information session in January. I know that there's like a real sense of urgency among the musicians and some of the bar owners and the bartenders who are kind of on the front lines. There's a real sense of urgency, especially now that we're in December. It's the holiday season. There's more people are going out. Musicians are performing more.
That's true.
And they want to see something now, not in January.
No, for sure.
So what would you say to them?
Well, I would say that safety within our venues is the number one priority, and even the musicians had noted that, you know, security happening inside the bars is paramount. The owners and the members of the George Street Association would also say that security in the bars is a major expense that they are continuing to pump more and more into, because they want all of the patrons to have an enjoyable experience with their downtown, but of course the musicians as well. What happens out in the streets is a citywide problem. It is not limited to George Street, but we are stepping up as an association along with the other downtown member-based associations because of how important we all find this to be.
The issue of the RNC, one thing that I heard time and time again, of course, is the desire for more patrols, for a larger police presence in the downtown area, the thought being that that would deter some of the activities, that criminal activities that go on.
Sure.
Has there been a conversation
between the RNC and the George Street Association specifically about increasing the police presence downtown?
So many. That was one of the original conversations. And through all of our collaboration with the RNC, who we know everyone is facing their struggles when it comes to how they operate their organizations, and the RNC is no different. And the good news I will say to you based on your question is that because of, and in part due to all the communications that we have had in the working group, the RNC a month ago initiated 3 additional patrol officers on horseback in the downtown, which has already been met so positively, and it is making impact. And that is the type of evolution that we all want to see, but we need the data to support the decisions that get made because of the responsibility of investment and all the implications thereof. So it's so important to log safety incidents as we see them. One of the major issues we've identified in the Downtown Safety Coalition via the RNC's communication with us as a partner in this working group is apathy. All people seeing things that are unsafe, having issues occur, or people they know, and no one logging it. The RNC, like any association, is a data-driven one, and if you can measure it, you can manage it. And so if we want, as a downtown population, amongst organizations and beyond, to have a feeling of more safety in the downtown, the importance for us to log and report via online or over the phone incidents as we see them is critical, so the RNC can see the data and say, we might need to do this or to do that. And I think that is a critical piece of information everyone needs to know, and we need to culturalize that throughout all the member-based organizations in the downtown so that in a year's time, hopefully we can qualify and quantify a better feeling and awareness around the importance of having safety reported and the positive impacts that will have for all of us in the downtown.
Nothing like this. This is a whole other level of attention.
This show might run for a number of years and you might be just tortured on it, wishing the hell it would all end. You never know, right? How things go.
The parents of Percy White Hynes are feeling pretty proud. Their son has snagged one of the starring roles in the Netflix hit Wednesday. We'll hear from Sherry White and Joel Thomas Hynes next. There's a lot of hometown hype for the new Netflix series Wednesday from creator Tim Burton. It's already broken streaming records in its first week. The show follows the twisted adventures of Wednesday Addams, who gets sent to a spooky boarding school for strange students, and one of her classmates is played by Percy Hynes White, who's from St. John's. Percy has grown up in and around the entertainment industry. Proud parents Sherry White and Joel Thomas Hynes swung by the St. John's Morning Show studio this morning for a chat with host Chrissy Holmes.
Ever shot a bow and arrow before?
Only on live targets.
Okay.
It's been really exciting, and obviously he's been doing this thing for a while, you know, and he's had a few little moments where he kind of was getting a bit of attention, or in a project that had, you know, he was on a Marvel series a few years ago and stuff, but it's been nothing like this. This is a whole other level of attention.
What did Tim Burton say about him? Remember that?
Yeah, Tim Burton said that it described him as inherently likable and untrustworthy.
The metrics that you're seeing from Netflix right now, like, yeah, it's a big deal, but can you put it in context? Like, from the entertainment industry, how big a deal is Wednesday right now in the world?
Well, I mean, I don't really know much other than that it topped. It was the most watched show in the first week of launching that they've ever had, which is gigantic because they've had some serious hits. And it is, like, it was the #1 show in at least 85 countries and
400 million hours right now.
Yeah, like,
cumulative
so,
hours.
Yeah.
Beat Stranger Things?
It beat Stranger Things, yeah.
Percy auditioned for Stranger Things years ago.
Did he?
Yeah, and he was close. He's been close to a lot of things like that, you know. And by degrees, it's just a blessing that he didn't get that at the time.
Well, I was thinking that because, yeah, they screen tested him for that. We had to fly down, and he auditioned with all those kids and stuff, and he was a little bit older, and he didn't go his way. And I was quite glad, too, because he was so young, and and now he's 21, and it's still overwhelming, but he is way more grounded and able to handle it, I think.
I had never been to Eastern Europe before. It was just a whole other world for me. I loved it, but also I was only there for a week or so, you know, so I just soaked it up. It was a very bleak country. Bucharest was pretty bleak, and it was curfew on over there and stuff like that. I kind of went over after Sherry had gone over to help Percy, because it's not always easy. You know, he was over there at times for 7-8 days in between a work day in an apartment in a foreign country with a curfew on. I just kind of went over and got him a toaster and kitchen knives and stuff like that, made his apartment more livable. And
you know, when you rent an apartment there or when you rent an Airbnb, you don't necessarily get heating included in that. You don't necessarily get a fridge. Mm-hmm. So it's just a very different kind of feeling there. And so, yeah, when I got there, Percy literally had a jar of mayonnaise, a bottle of mayonnaise. That was all that was in his fridge.
We dodged out to the Black Sea and hung out and everything, you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, where does he get that dark, broody artist thing going on? I don't know where it comes from.
Percy grew up on Tim Burton, yeah. Like, really, he loved. He's a serious movie buff. It's hard to stump him on something he hasn't seen, but Nightmare Before Christmas and Beetlejuice and all that stuff.
And remember those poetry books that you used to read?
Yeah, Oyster Boy and Stain Boy.
One of my favorite stories that connect Percy to Tim Burton is when Cracky was playing at MoMA. I took Percy with me to MoMA, and the Tim Burton exhibit was there. Oh. And so Percy was so excited. He couldn't wait to go see it. And it was closed. And Percy had a meltdown. He had a complete meltdown. And we were walking around this place, and he was just being so, I don't know how to say it. Anyway, at a certain point, I was getting on the elevator with him, and there was 2 other curators for the design and from out of something else. Anyway, I was trying to be all proper, and Percy was acting up, and I turned to him and I squeezed his hand and I said, "Stop being an ass." And then we get on the elevator, and Percy looks up at those 2 men and he goes, My mom just squeezed my hand really hard and called me an asshole.
Oh my God. I can't wait to see what comes next. Any idea when they're going to announce second season or whatever with Wednesday?
No, I think they have until March or April to have to renew the option for him. You know, but they'd be crazy not to.
Respiratory infections in children are raging across the country, and healthcare systems are struggling to keep up. Some have been forced to cancel services, while others are juggling resources. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson has this report.
It was a parent's nightmare, a 3-year-old with high fever that wouldn't come down, and one hospital after another too busy to treat him until they found a walk-in clinic that could.
Going around and just trying to find help, begging on doors. Like, I can't believe that in 2022 that's what we're doing.
A surge in kids' respiratory infections, especially the flu, continues to stretch resources at pediatric hospitals across the country, with admissions 10 times higher than usual.
12 children's hospitals are tracking data. In the last week of November, we saw 223 admissions to the hospital for children suffering from side effects of the flu. This number would typically be 10, 11, 12 kids a week.
The evidence of crisis is everywhere. Ottawa's Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario bringing in the Red Cross this week to support staff. In Calgary, a pediatric hospice discharging its respite patients because staff were urgently needed at the local children's hospital. Stories like those prompting anger and vague responses from the authorities.
We're going to make sure we're listening to the best advice from experts and public health authorities.
Help is coming. Our system is under strain. There's no doubt about that. And this is not just unique to, Albertans Children's Hospital.
We still have time to blunt the impact of this transmission by getting people vaccinated.
Experts say concrete solutions are needed now.
We have to, number one, increase capacity in our healthcare system so we can absorb these things when they happen. But we also have to try to prevent these things from happening in the first place.
Experts say the best thing Canadians can do to help protect their kids is to give them the flu shot, something only a small number of kids under the age of 4 have received. And while there seems to be no political will to bring back mandates, many experts recommend masking, especially when in crowded indoor spaces. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Canada's Auditor General has released a pair of reports on the federal government's response to COVID-19. The reports say Ottawa was successful in securing and distributing vaccines and rolling out benefits programs, but they point out that millions of vaccine doses were wasted and billions of dollars in payments were made to ineligible recipients.
We found that overpayments of $4.6 billion were made to ineligible individuals. And we estimated that at least $27.4 billion of payments to individuals and employers should be investigated further.
The Auditor General says the government has to do more to investigate overpayments and recover the money. The audits also found that millions of doses of vaccines were wasted. Nearly 51 million doses of vaccine were declared surplus in Canada and offered for donation. Just over 15 million were given away, but nearly 14 million expired before they were donated. The reports blame poor data sharing for the waste. The Auditor General has been pressing Ottawa to develop better systems for sharing health information since 1999. The Assembly of First Nations has named the former chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Murray Sinclair, as a mediator to help the AFN with conflict resolution. 5 months ago, National Chief Roseanne Archibald was temporarily suspended and then reinstated by the group's executive committee. But in her opening remarks at the Special Assembly today, Archibald tried to present a united front with the executive.
We plan on having a productive and positive meeting, and we're determined to get the work done. Welcome to the 2022 Special Chiefs Assembly.
Archibald has been accused of workplace bullying. She has in turn accused the Assembly's CEO of colluding with the complainants to undermine her authority. An investigation into the charges against Archibald is ongoing. The AFN is holding a special 3-day meeting in Ottawa. Tomorrow on CBC Radio's Newfoundland Morning, hear about a volunteer group in Stephenville helping seniors with everything from shoveling snow to getting groceries. Well, we were talking earlier about how it's not looking too wintry in the St. John's, Avalon area, but there are places in the province that are looking very wintry.
Yes, absolutely. But temperatures aren't quite, where you want them to be, especially because outdoor activities.
Yeah, snowmobiling and all that.
All of that. It gets pretty tough when temperatures are fairly mild, right? So yeah, that's going to continue through the day on Thursday. Let's take a look at where that snow is. So Labrador, Lab West particularly, northern Labrador, you'll see that snow continue for the most part on Thursday, right into the afternoon. Then we'll start to see that snow head towards central Labrador and along the mid-coast as well. And then eventually you'll see some clearing skies for Lab West. So you'll say goodbye to the snow at least through the afternoon hours on Thursday. Otherwise, still in that onshore flow again, which means RDF this story for a good chunk of the island. And temperatures really not moving too much either. 2, 3, 4 degrees through the day on Thursday. And then Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures head back down below 0 for Happy Valley Goose, Lab City at -4. Happy Valley Goose Bay, though, you'll stay above 0. So you might see some rain in the mix at times for you through the day on Thursday. And then along the strait as well, you're still looking at either showers, drizzle, or even some freezing drizzle in either side, either the morning or the evening hours as those temperatures dip down through the day or night. Now, as far as Thursday evening goes and into Friday morning, because we've got this big ridge of high pressure blocking, this trough has nowhere to go. So that is going to stick around through the day on Friday, pretty much stationary through central and northern Labrador through the day on Friday. As you can see, not a whole lot of movement, but we are going to start to see some of the clearing skies in behind it. This also means some colder air is going to move in down to -14 for Lab City, more seasonable for this time of year. But again, nothing else really on the go. That chance of showers or drizzle and some fog patches through the day on Friday. Again, long range forecast looking like much of the same. Anywhere from 2 to 4 degrees through the day. Overnight lows above 0 as well for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland. And then for central Newfoundland, you're looking at a similar forecast, except we'll start talking about the chance of a few flurries in the mix for Saturday and Sunday. And then more flurry activity, the story for western Newfoundland. So you will see some of that return. For eastern Labrador, some snow will move in by Saturday. It looks like down to -8. That'll be fairly short-lived, though. You're back up above 0 by Sunday. And then there's that cooler air I was talking about for Lab West, down into the teens, even -20s overnight. Now take a look at this shot. Speaking of the big land,
oh wow,
this is the sunrise in Mary's Harbor. Annette shared this great shot with us. And if you have any great weather photos that you would like to share with us, send them to Facebook, Twitter, or email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, Mary's Harbor, just gorgeous. Thank you so much, Annette. That's a great shot. Well, that's it for us on this Tuesday. It's Tuesday, right? Yeah, it's Tuesday. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. Hope you can join us again tomorrow.
Good night.